Hello everybody, Andy here again, Sunday morning. First things first, I should put the figures down there, and the deaths yesterday went up again, 708, which I suppose is only to be expected, and the total number of cases is 4,313, total number of deaths, 4,313. Something else I should put down below now, every day, as I mentioned yesterday, talking about albums and the albums that I'm trying to listen to every day, and hopefully getting at least one. So I'm going to put yesterday's album down there, which just happens to have been Television's 1977 album Marquee, and I was actually lucky enough to see them a couple of years ago locally at the Delaware Pavilion, which is a couple of 3 miles away in Bexhill, and I actually wrote a review of it, so I'll put that below as well. But one thing, it's a lovely day here, once again talking about all that type of thing about not going out, and one of the reasons that they don't want you to go out, because you might think, if I go to the country park, it's a big wide open space. I'm going to be socially distancing because I'm not going to be near anybody, and I'm going to be able to get out of their way quite easily. Even if I go, drive 10 miles or something, I can get out of where all the other people are. The reason they don't want you to do that is because, unfortunately, you might have some sort of accident on the way there or on the way back. And I've heard people zooming off on their motorbikes today, something that happens quite a lot on a Sunday in the UK, I understand normally. But if those people have an accident, or the car drivers have an accident, who's going to come and pick up the pieces? Who's going to come and take them to the hospital? A hospital which nobody else is going to be able to visit them. They're going to be clogging up the hospitals, taking valuable staff away from dealing with the virus, and when they don't need to be doing that. And that is the whole point of it. Yes, I know it sounds pretty draconian, but that's the main reason. Yes, you might think, well, what difference does it make? I'm self-isolating in my car. That's the reason. They don't want you to have an accident, obviously. It's not essential travel, and then you might do exactly what I said, clogging up the system. The other thing was about the deaths, actually. Because, as I mentioned before, the deaths here in the UK, the way they're calculated or reported, they're only the ones that have happened in hospitals. They're not the ones that have happened in the wider community, because it's not always easy to collate those figures. And that's another point. Reading something yesterday, and I could totally understand why this is, those figures might not be particularly accurate, because the way that the figures are collated, as I said, they come in from all different hospitals and all different trusts and care homes and all these type of things. They're not particularly accurate. They might be a few days out of date, which is one of the reasons I think that we had a couple of dips during last week where the deaths went down from the sort of 200s down into the hundreds. There was one day I think the deaths were reported as being 150 something. They were actually, once they realised it, they were actually over 400 for that particular day. Yes, there's not a great deal you can do about that, but you need to get these figures right to an extent, or as near as you can, so that you can actually figure out the path, the trajectory of this particular disease in whichever country you're in. We want to get to the top of that hill and the plateau. Obviously, we want to start going down the other side, but the deaths aren't always the best indicator. The best indicator are the amount of cases, because obviously the deaths, it's in a way a matter of luck, whether you get the disease or the virus in the first place, but how you survive it. It seems to attack different people in different ways. We've had cases over here of 19-year-old teenagers with no underlying health problems who've died because of coronavirus, and there was a very good report yesterday of thankfully a 98-year-old woman who survived it. So it's indiscriminate in that way, and there's obviously a lot of luck in the way that you get it, how the severity of what you actually get. But it's the testing that is the main thing. If you test hundreds and thousands of people, you get a far more indicator of how many people are actually getting the disease. Yes, the deaths are one indicator, but the amount of testing and the amount of cases that are actually happening is a far better indicator, which is why we're a bit behind on that. So we can't at the moment really predict. I don't think, I'm no medical expert, and I'm quite happy to listen to the medical experts because they are the people that know, but they're trying to figure out where we are in this. And when obviously we want to get to the top of this. Hopefully that seems to be what's happening in Italy and Spain and places like that. And we're supposed to be a couple of weeks behind this. And as we mentioned before, we need to come out of this properly. And if we get it wrong, we are still going up, and we don't realise we're still going up, and we start taking away some of those restrictions, we're going to be back to square one. Anyway, the thing I actually wanted to talk about today, after going off on that, was about sometimes things that make you realise other people who are more vulnerable. As I said, there's lots of people on their own, lots of people not in a great place. But one of the people that have been affected as much or more than anybody else are the homeless. Everywhere has homeless people, whichever country, city, town that you're living in, you will see homeless people. Unfortunately, the way that the world is, that's the way that it's happened. We've certainly seen an increase here in the UK. But this particular magazine, I mentioned this magazine, this is the Big Issue magazine. For those who aren't in the UK, and even for some who maybe are, the big issue being actually homelessness. And this particular magazine started in 29 years ago, and it's been going every week ever since. This is number 1403, comes out weekly. And the idea is they call it a hand up, not a handout. What they do is they sell it to vendors who are homeless people, who will contact them and then give them a certain amount of training, a loan. They then buy magazines and sell them on the street. They buy the magazines for £1.25 each, and they sell them for £2.50, minimum of £2.50. A lot of people actually give the vendors more than £2.50, but that's it. But they are having issues, as you can imagine. They are having issues because they've had to take all of their vendors off the streets because it's not safe for them, and also with them. They're generally the people that aren't in the greatest of health. I'll read something that the editor's put in his little piece in this. He said, and because of the way that things change, he says, things changed quickly. A matter of days ago, it seems like a lifetime now, we removed the big issue vendors from the streets of Britain. There are 1,500 of them generally. It is becoming clear at incredible speed that they run safe. The streets are tough enough at the best of times when they're stalked by an invisible enemy that picks on the weakest, and your people have underlying problems, putting them right in the crosshairs. You've got to act. And so for the first time since John Bird wrestled this magazine into being 29 years ago, an edition didn't appear on the streets. That was one hell of an emotional thing to happen. But that was just the start. No time to rest and ponder. It precipitated a complete change in how we work. Our means of operation have been hardwired since day one. A hand up, not a handout, as I said. We create a magazine. We sell it to the marginalised people of Britain, the poorest, and those most often neglected or ignored. They get it from us for half the cover price, and then they sell it for the cover price. That's their income, their legitimate income. It's a way to earn, a way to re-socialise, a way to work, and to get self-confidence and pride, a centering and a future. So when that is gone, what do? It's a very interesting point, and it's once again it brings it home to you about how so many places now are having to re-evaluate what they do and rework what they do. And that's a very, very good example. I mean, I've been buying this magazine when I've seen a vendor on the street. In some ways, you don't want to see a vendor on the street because it shows that there are homeless people out there who are struggling. But that's a very good way of doing it, and they've been doing a really, really good job, obviously, for those 29 years. But they've changed, and they've brought out a subscription issue now. So you can subscribe. This is the first ever subscriber edition that they've done. I started subscribing at the beginning of this year, and what they do, you might think, well, you're not buying the magazine from the vendors on the street. What they do is once they get to a certain amount of subscribers, that means they can actually employ somebody within the company, within the magazine, to actually sort all the magazines out. And when they come to you, in normal circumstances, they're actually signed by the person who packs the magazine for you. That person's been taken off of the street effectively and given a job. That is really, as I said, it's a hand up, not a handout. What they're trying to do is get 60,000 subscribers now, because if they do that, they can then give money, the food, the basic bills and that type of thing to keep these people going in all of this time. Ironically, the government have recognised that obviously homeless people are especially vulnerable at this particular time, and they've said that they will try and house every single one of them in the UK. And you're thinking, why can't you do that the rest of the time? But anyway, that's another argument. So innovation is a good thing. Out of adversity comes innovation, and I should be talking about that at other times. They're also producing like a digital issue as well, and for the first time in their history, a couple of high street shops like Sainsbury's, the major supermarket, and McColl's, which is a newsagent chain, are actually putting the magazine in their racks so that people can go into those shops and actually buy it physically from a shop from the first time ever. So well done to Sainsbury's and to McColl's for getting on board. Why not Have a go at that, have a look at it, find it. I'll put the link obviously below. Maybe you want to subscribe and help some of those people out that are even less fortunate than what you are, because as the old saying, there's always someone worse off than you are, isn't there? And it makes you feel quite privileged and humbled actually to be able to sit here and do this in these surroundings, and knowing that you're pretty much safe and well and financially secure, whereas so many people aren't. So there's your thought for the day, as it's a Sunday. And stay indoors once again. Stay safe, stay strong, and hopefully I shall speak to you again tomorrow. Goodbye.